The winter sports seasons are officially over.
Coming up, we'll be talking about how each team fared and where they can go from here. All of this next on Bobcat Breakdown. Good evening, and thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Nick Colon.
And I'm Victoria Rutigliano. This week, the men's ice hockey team finished its season in Fargo, losing to North Dakota in the first round of the NCAA tournament 4-1. UND came out with an early lead, with Tucker Pullman scoring a power play goal in the first 12 minutes of the game. Then in the second period, two more North Dakota players were able to net goals 2 minutes apart halfway through the second period, the third goal being short-handed. The Bobcats were finally able to get their name on the score sheet after Andrew Taverner scored on the power play in the last minute and a half of the game. UND would seal the victory, though scoring an empty net goal with 15 seconds left in the game, and the Bobcats would get knocked out of the NCAA tournament. So Nick, obviously that was a disappointing end to the season, but do you think the season overall was disappointing?
No, I don't, because I think they lose to probably one of the best teams in the country right now in North Dakota, who we now know are in the Frozen Four. And if they lose, maybe if they lose to Union in the ECAC playoffs, they don't make the tournament because they just squeezed in. Then yes, that's a disappointing season because they've been to the NCAA tournament the last 2 years, making it 3 straight this year. So if that happens, yes. Now I don't think so because they dealt with injuries all year. You have Devon Taves injured, Sam Annis, he was injured. He had limited participation. So I don't think it was a disappointing season. I think they're in the same position that they should have been and that they were in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And UND was also number 2 in the pairwise, so they were
right.
They were definitely huge coming into the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Also, they lost a lot of seniors last year. They lost, 7 players, including big names like Colin and Kevin Jones, Jordan Samuels-Thomas, Bryson Vaughn, who are all playing for their NHL affiliates right now. So they had to lose all these players. They were a very young team. They had 18 underclassmen, and they had to battle against that. So definitely not a disappointing season, in my opinion.
That's a good point you raised up because Pecknold always says how this team is young and inexperienced. Next year, looking forward, the only remedy for that is time. And this team is talented, so literally next year, all the experience in this situation is only going to benefit them even better. So let's move on. Now that the season has officially come to a close, what will be the greatest takeaway for the Bobcats?
For me, it's their continued success making it to the NCAA tournament. This is their 3rd year in a row, so they're making a big name for themselves. They're playing teams next year like BU and St. Cloud State. So that's just showing how they're getting known by other teams from the Hockey East, from the Midwest. They're getting known from places outside of the ECAC, which is really big for a team like Quinnipiac. I
agree, yes. I would say the biggest takeaway is probably, as I just mentioned, the youth. You look at Landon Smith, you look at Tanner McMaster. They were successful this year. They're only going to get better. Devon was injured. He's a huge part of their defense. I think if this team can stay healthy for a majority of the season, they're going to be another threat in the ECAC again and be strong up atop on the pairwise rankings. I think the youth right now is the key for Quinnipiac.
18 underclassmen, 9 freshmen, so I agree with you on that one. Next, we're going to move on to who needs to step up on the team.
I would say I favor Devon Taves a lot. I like Devon because, especially this year, he was hurt. He had 1 good arm this year. He still has 20 points. He's still strong for the Bobcats. I think he's just going to step up. There's going to be holes if you have Federico leaving. I think there's going to be holes Devon can step up. He's proven himself that he's a valuable player on this team. You're going to have Sam again, but you kind of expect Sam to be there. I don't think you say he could step up, but he's been there. He's been doing his part, his share. I think other players like Devon can step up and really prove that he's one of the top players in the country.
He played on the first line a lot with Federico this season, so I can agree with that. But for me, I think it was Tanner McMaster. Before coming to QU, he was the Alberta Junior Hockey League Rookie of the Year in 2013. In 2014, he accumulated 40 points, so he was a big player coming into Quinnipiac. And then once he gets here, he gets, 5 goals, 7 assists for 12 points a season? I don't know. He needs to step up more than that. They can't just have a player like Sam Annis they can go to towards the end of every game to score the game-winning goal, to score the goal in overtime. They need more players offensively, and I think Tanner McMaster needs to be one of those players.
Yeah, depth was definitely a big issue this year. I agree with that, and I think all the youth players need to step up, like you said, the underclassmen. So let's move on. When we return, Victoria and I will discuss men's and women's basketball.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
Back to his Hollywood. This is my mom. I have to make a decision here and back. Playoff spot.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Trisha Fabry and the 31-4 Quinnipiac women's basketball team outdid themselves this season when they trailblazed through the MAC playoffs and snatched themselves a seat in the NCAA tournament. While the men's basketball team, on the other hand, broke even at 500. Victoria, what are your final thoughts on how these two teams fared this season?
I mean, obviously for the women's basketball team, it was an incredible season. I mean, you just said it. They ended the MAC with going 20-0.
Right.
First team to ever do that in the MAC during the MAC season. So they had an incredible season. They made it to the NCAA playoffs for the second time ever. And playing a team like Oklahoma. Oklahoma's huge, obviously. And they also played Notre Dame earlier in the season. So they're playing really big teams, and they're playing well. I mean, they lost to both those teams, but think about the MAC. They excelled in the MAC. They had, again, were undefeated at home, 14-0. They had a huge season. In my opinion, it was big.
Yeah, the women's team was sensational this year. I mean, what coach in their right mind, all I can think of is Greg Popovich, who switches 5 players, the Gold Rush and the Old Rush. Who does that? It was unbelievable the depth they had this year. They were just a powerful team. They were absolutely demolishing teams. They got their first votes in the USA Today's coaches poll, top 25's first time in history. Like you said, they were 20-0 in conference, added 3 more in the playoffs, 23-0 against all MAC competitions, trailblazed through the entire MAC playoffs, and they were just an absolute pleasure to watch. The men, on the other hand, I don't want to beat up the men too much. They did finish at 500. They're 15-15, but it was just disappointing because of the talent they had. They were the best out-rebounding team in the country, and they got upset by a number 11 Marist team in the playoffs. 12 of their 15 games, they lost by 6 or fewer points. For me, it was just unlucky for that team. They had such talent: Drame, Hurst, Conti, Harris. It was sad to see the team kind of sink towards the end of the season.
I can agree to that. Also, it was like last season they went 20-12. This season they went 15-15. So this season definitely wasn't one of their strongest seasons. And then going into the first round of the MAC playoffs, they lose to Marist, who was the bottom seed in the first round. And I know that people say, like, okay, they were hurt for most of the season. They lost players like Siobhan Lewis, Khalid Hart, so they were hurt.
Right.
But that's also a team that I really think the men's basketball team could have defeated in the first round.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, let's move on. Now we have a segment from Sports Pause in which John Alba breaks down Kasim Chandler's departure from the men's basketball team and where the team will go from here.
We now bring in Q30 Sports basketball beat reporter John Alba to discuss the fate of the team.
So, John, what are the implications for Kasim leaving the program?
This means a lot for Quinnipiac. As you said, Nick, 13th transfer since the 2010-2011 season started, and Q30 Sports has learned that there's a very good possibility one more transfer may be coming. This isn't good for Quinnipiac. academic progress rate has to go into the back of the minds of the coaching staff alongside those in upper administration and athletics. Kasim Chandler was supposed to be a guy who at one point some people thought would be the point guard of the future for the Bobcats. Had a huge game against LaSalle in his freshman season. This year starts the season, plays more than 40 minutes against Yale, and then goes on a stretch where he's moved to the bench and only sees 20 games just once after that. Not the ideal career at Quinnipiac for Kasim Chandler.
All right, John. Now Chandler's out of the picture, but how will the recruits coming in next year add to the team?
Well, Quinnipiac has 3 recruits in particular coming in, all from Maryland. Andrew Robinson, Aaron Robinson, alongside Abdullah Bundu. Andrew Robinson is the star of this pack in terms of what he's proven in tough competition. Almost 20 points per game inside. He can also rebound. He can shoot from beyond the arc. That's a multi-talented player that Quinnipiac's going to look to. His brother, Aaron, does average double digits as well. And then there's Bundu, who averaged 28 points per game in his senior season. That alarmed some of the Quinnipiac coaches. They weren't expecting to get that out of him. If Quinnipiac can use that to its advantage and get actual scoring where it didn't have it last year, that'll be a huge step in the right direction. But as we know, it takes a lot for Tom Moore to trust freshmen.
Definitely, John. And now we know Kasim is gone, and we know that these new recruits are coming in. So is this team going to be successful next year?
That's a big question, Carolyn, and that's not something you can answer this early because there's so many different facets. You have to learn what kind of player Giovanni McLean is going to be. He had a year off. Is someone like him going to be able to stay in basketball shape, which I expect he'll be able to do, and get right back into the picture? Is he somebody who's actually going to be able and function in a rotation where the MAC is entirely guard heavy? And we saw it 2 years ago with Quinnipiac as Umar Shannon was somebody who the Bobcats relied off of. As Umar Shannon dominated, it allowed for the Bobcats to succeed down low. Usman Drame was a major force down low. Ike Azatan was a major force down low. So I think the guard play is actually going to be solid for Quinnipiac. It's what happens with the forward. Is Bundu going to be someone that the Bobcats can actually rely off of? Once he's going against high Division I bodies, is he going to be able to thrive? That's a question that's maybe a little too early to answer. The Bobcats, James Ford Jr., he's not somebody who's known for his post play. He's going to shoot, but who is going to be that option down low for Quinnipiac? Plus, who's going to transfer out? Will anybody transfer in? The Bobcats have to worry about all that stuff and make sure that their APR doesn't get into a situation where it could be in a dangerous mix of being disqualified from the NCAA tournament or any postseason tournament for that matter. I think the Bobcats will be okay in that regard, but when all is said and done, Carolyn, I do believe it's too early for the Bobcats to look that close to the season.
In addition to Kasim Chandler transferring, the Bobcats are also losing 6 seniors, including 3 big-time contributors to the team. Where do you see the team going from here next year?
Well, you just mentioned it. They lose 6 seniors. They lose Kasim Harris. That's 7 players. They lose Drame, of course, he's part of that, the MAC Defensive Player of the Year. They lose their highest scorer in Hurst. They lose Harris. They lose Conti. Now they have Giovanni McLean, who's now eligible. We know this. We haven't seen him play, but I think he can be an immediate impact for this team. Aaron Hutton took over the guard position. Just took it over. He started the last 17 games, and he's just completely influential for this team. I think they have holes to fill. I think they have major holes to fill, especially in the paint. I don't think it's all downhill for this team, but I think there's going to be a decent transition.
Something that definitely worries me is the fact that Hurst and Drame really led offensively. They combined for 33 points per game, whereas no one else on the team could even get more than 10 points per game. So that's one of the things that definitely would stress me out, is that they really need someone who's going to be there on offense. And you say Giovanni McLean, I definitely see that. I can see him stepping up. He's definitely someone that they haven't seen since Umar Shannon, who ran the point in 2013-14. So he's definitely someone who they're going to need going to next season, especially with these really good players who are going to leave.
Right. And the women's team has a similar problem as well. They're losing huge seniors. Sam Guastella, Boo Abshire, Jasmine Martin. But Coach Fabry is an excellent recruiter. She brings in Jasmine Martin's younger sister, Brittany Martin, who's a McDonald's All-American nominee. They pick up Erin Mcclure out of Archbishop Malloy. She's the number 264th ranked prospect in the class of 2019. That is huge. That is the highest ranking that they've ever gotten on a recruit. So they'll be set next year because Fabry knows what she's doing. I think the women's team is doing well.
Coming up next on Bobcat Breakdown, Nick and I will be giving out awards to certain players and coaches on each sports team who excelled in certain fields.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
And we have a
Back to his Hollywood days.
This is my mom.
Make it sit here and back. Playoff spot, which
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Right now, Nick and I will be choosing and awarding certain players and coaches who perform the best in various categories. So, okay, Nick, which program is receiving your award for Surprise Team of the Season?
Now, this may sound like a little puzzling, but I'm going to give it to the Quinnipiac women's basketball. Now, I know they were chosen with Marist preseason poll to be the top team. They were tied #1. But who would have thought they would have got, at least I didn't think they were going to get another 30-plus win season. What they did was remarkable this season, and they scored 84 points against the Oklahoma team. I don't want to say they held themselves against that team, but who would think that if you score 84 points, you're most likely going to win? This Oklahoma team was ridiculous. They've been to the tournament 16 straight times. But they really proved themselves, and they surprised me. They exceeded my expectations. I didn't think they would get that far.
Even though they were ranked #1 going into
Right.
the season, you still think they were surprising?
Yeah, I do. I didn't think they would be that dominant. I really didn't. They just destroyed the competition, especially in the MAC. I didn't think they could go undefeated in the MAC and then continue it throughout the playoffs. I thought they would be there in the final against Marist. I didn't think they would be undefeated the entire way and just look so easy doing it.
All right, maybe I can see that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's definitely the women's ice hockey team.
Okay.
They made their first ever appearance in the NCAA tournament this
Right.
year. I don't think your team did that. So they might have lost to Harvard 5-0, but they still made it to the NCAA tournament, and I think that's the biggest thing to take out of all this. And this was especially after losing 6 seniors last year, including Kelly Babstock, who was basically their offense. She totaled 49 points last season, 19 goals, 30 assists, though she was really the team last year offensively, and they still were able to come out and make it to the NCAA tournament this year. Most surprising for me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that they accomplished a lot this year, and like you said, it was their first ever NCAA appearance. I just think the women's basketball team just took it to another level, and I didn't think they had it in them, honestly.
I can agree with that. So now moving on to specific players. Nick, who do you think was the biggest player that was a surprise to you?
I'm going to go with a man who just took over this year on the men's basketball team, freshman guard Erin Mcclure. He took over the point guard position and started the rest of the season. He helped his team to new heights, and he performed his best against Iona, the best team in the MAC, in my opinion. Okay, they didn't win. They had Manhattan, but in my opinion, they're the best team in the MAC.
He had a huge game that
Right.
night.
16 points, 8 assists. He just got selected to the all-rookie team. In my opinion, freshman Erin Hutton was surpassed by all of this.
All right, I'm going to take it over to men's hockey and say Soren Janssen was definitely the most surprising player for me. In his first 2 years, he totaled 5 points. He played in 24 games last year. He played in 4 his freshman year. This year he played in every single game. He had 8 goals and 7 assists this year. So that's a lot compared to last year when he only averaged 5 points. He's definitely getting the surprise player for me.
Okay, that's fair. This past season, 3 out of the 4 winter sports teams made it into the NCAA tournament, courtesy of their respective coaching personnel. Victoria, in your opinion, which head coach ran the most successful campaign this winter?
I mean, I don't even know if this is a question. Trisha Fabry, definitely. She was named MAC Coach of the Year. Don't know if you can really compete with that. She was the first coach of the MACs to go 20-0 in a season, And although she has received Coach of the Year in the NEC before joining the MAC, this was definitely big. She obviously was an important part of this team. I mean, you can't have a bad coach and go 20-0. So she was an integral part of the team and definitely got my vote for best coach.
See, I would agree, but I feel like she's kind of, this team, don't get me wrong, this season was remarkable for them, but she's had a 30-win season before. In my opinion, Rick Seeley gets it. Because like you said, it was the first ever NCAA appearance they've ever had. I think, in my opinion, for about 90% of the season, they had the best defense. They have the most shutouts. Their defense was spectacular. They had the best goal against average. They finished 6th in the polling, even though they got knocked out early. I think Rick Seeley is the head coach of the winter season.
Okay. At least both women's teams are pretty good at what they do,
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Okay, last question of the night. Each team is graduating some very important seniors, but at the same time, there are still players who will be integral parts of the rosters. So which team do you think has the highest ceiling going into next year?
I'm going to stick with women's hockey. I would say women's basketball, but the only way I can see them improving on next year is if they literally go perfect. And I don't think they can go perfect next year. You see women's hockey, they're bringing back Taylor Cianfrano's freshman, Nicole Connery's back, and Rick Seeley describes his recruiting class as one of the best he's ever had. So if he's saying that now, especially with all the talent he's had, I think they're going to be an absolute threat.
Okay. I can see that, but I'm going to say men's ice hockey only because they're losing 4 players. And yes, Pekka and Federico were very important parts of the team. They were the leaders. They were the ones that kids looked to on and off the ice. But they still have strong offensemen and defensemen. They have Annis, St. Dennis, Landon Smith coming back on offense. They have Taze, Connor Clifton, and Derek Smith coming back on defense. They have a core group that's coming back who I can definitely see taking on leading roles on this team and really making a difference going into next year. So I definitely think they have the highest ceiling.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Bobcat Breakdown.
For the latest updates on Quinnipiac sports, check out Q30television.com and Twitter at Q30sports.
For Victoria Rutigliano, I'm Nick Colon. Have a good night.